Hello, and welcome to Inter-App Communication with ArcGIS Apps. I am James Tedrick with the Survey 123 team. Along with me is Joel Whitney, who works on Explore and Navigator. Today, we'll cover the Esri Apps for Field Operations ecosystem and how the different apps pair together to complete different workflows. The links apps use to communicate with each other, common link setups, and how a developer can configure their own apps to both link to Esri Field Operations apps, as well as be the destination for incoming links. The Esri Field Operation apps enable you to perform a variety of common activities. They're modeled around enabling the different phases of field operations as discrete tasks. Before heading out to the field, you need to plan the activity using a combination of ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Pro, and Workforce for ArcGIS. To get where you need to go, Navigator can provide directions while offline and integrate your custom road data. To understand what's around you, whether it's for real-time situational awareness or for finding that broken valve, Explorer can help. To capture data, we have apps like Collector, Survey 123, and Quick Capture to target different collection methodologies. And to keep the back office and headquarters aware of the operations progress, apps like Tracker or Workforce pair great with Operations Dashboard. The field operation apps improve coordination and operational efficiency in field workforce activities. They can reduce or even replace the reliance on paper. They ensure that both field and office workers use the same authoritative data to reduce errors, boost productivity, and save money. Pairing apps allow for the creation of simple or ad hoc workflows. Navigator, for instance, is already paired with Explorer and Collector for ArcGIS, enabling a user to find their way to the next inspection site. That being said, there are also many ways to pair apps together or otherwise integrate them. For example, the data collected by Survey 123 or Collector can be monitored with an operations dashboard. Both Collector and Explorer can provide a map context for you to find an asset and then open up a smart form in Survey 123 to complete the inspection of that asset. ArcGIS Pro enables us to create the offline maps and packages needed to work in the field with Collector, Explorer, or Navigator. And finally, Workforce is designed to link together these applications to allow a field worker to go out to the field, find their next task, and then complete it using a field app. You can also use your app within these connection processes by linking to them, as we'll see in a bit. Now, let's take a look at how some of these field operation apps work together. Here, you see the screen of my phone, and that I have several of the Esri field operation apps already installed. Let's open Collector and see my location as well as the surrounding map environment. I can quickly navigate to my destination, or I can quickly select my destination, and then navigate using either the built-in apps in the phone or Navigator. Navigator will take me to my location. And then once there, allow me to return back into Collector, where I can now begin my collection activity. Looking at Workforce for ArcGIS, we can configure many apps to complete assignments. Through the app integrations, you can see that Collector, Explorer, Navigator, and Survey 123 are all available for integrations, and that each one can be assigned to a different task. Coming into my workforce dispatcher view, I can see my field workers and their current locations, as well as the tasks that have been assigned and completed. I can create a new assignment, select the location, provide it a priority and due date, and provide a description. I'll create the assignment, and now that the assignment is created, assign it to my field worker. Coming back to my phone, I'll update my assignments, and you can see that I have one new critical assignment. Go to the assignment, and because it's a critical assignment, I'll acknowledge it, acknowledge reception, and then I can begin navigating to that assignment. Once again, Navigator gets me to the destination. And then returns me to Workforce, where I can report that I'm ready to start the assignment, which then gets reflected within a few seconds on our work map. There it goes. And now I can begin and explore this assignment using Explorer, which was the configured app for this task. I can come in, begin to add markup, add the markup, complete the assignment, return to Workforce, finish that out, and as you see, it updates again in the dispatcher map to provide that awareness. So now let's go and take a look at how we have our apps communicate together with Joel.
Next, we'll talk about how we're able to combine these apps using a technology called linking. As James showed previously, our apps are designed more or less to perform simple tasks, yet they're able to be paired together to perform these complex workflows. And this is done through a technology called deep linking. You may previously have heard us talk about this as URL schemes. Now, linking is a pretty simple technology, and it's really just a method for invoking or passing state information between locations. And we're all familiar with this technology and use it nearly every day, even if it's not apparent to us. One example is with web links. We've all opened up a web page or gotten an email with a hyperlink that when clicked takes us to a website. These are designed to take you deep into a website given a specific context, such as a file path or some parameters. And this practice is very common across mobile apps, and when implemented right, can result in a seamless integration between two different applications. For the sake of this presentation, when we talk about links, we'll be able to break these down into two main components. First, we'll have the scheme, and this will basically be the application being opened. And then we'll have some data, This will be the context for the application, so you can launch it to a specific state in the app. Here's a simple example to launch the Explorer application. You'll notice that in the link, there is an item ID, so that Explorer knows that when the app is opened, it will open that particular ID to open a map, such as a web map or a mobile map package. You'll notice that this same link is present in two different forms. First, we have the custom scheme, and then we have the web scheme. Previously, when we've done this presentation, we've only been talking about custom schemes. That's the ArcGIS-Explorer link. We're now starting to move to this new web scheme, which is preferred for a number of different reasons. The web scheme is a normal HTTPS link, so it's much easier to be shared, between different platforms, and gives the user a better experience if the app is not installed. Because it's just a normal URL, you can share this in an email, a text message, or put it on a website if you need to. Because there's a backing website component, if the user doesn't have the application installed, it will take them to a web page that lets them know how to install the application. Previously with the custom scheme, if the application isn't installed, then when the user taps the link, nothing might happen. So the web scheme, we'll continue to support both the custom scheme and the web scheme moving forward, but I definitely recommend for those of you creating links to create the link in the form of that web style URL, and you'll give a much better experience for your end user. So we use this deep linking technology, obviously in our apps, when we want to, combine some of these workflows, such as providing a navigation experience for users of Explorer or Collector or some of the other applications. When they tap on the directions button, they get shown the action sheet for the different directions providers. When they tap on the Navigator action, that will actually open a URL, which will open the Navigator application and provide the necessary information required to generate the route. This isn't exclusive to our applications, and you'll notice that a lot of other applications also use this technology, such as in this example, we have trail forks. When you're going to get driving directions to a location on the map, it will actually call out to Apple Maps and use that as the directions provider. It's also common for system applications. We don't always think of the system apps when we talk about some of this stuff, but they even take advantage of this technology as well to communicate between things like the contacts app and the phone app when you go to make a telephone call. It's also commonly used when we're working between different systems. So you may have noticed on your mobile device in the YouTube app or the Netflix app, they now have a button which will allow you to connect to a smart device in your house. And this is essentially just using a deep link to, open up the Netflix app on your TV and provide it the information it needs to load the content that you're trying to view. So next, we'll talk a little bit about, the ArcGIS apps and what you can actually do with these deep links. So now that we know how technology works, we're going to spend a little bit of time going over each app and talk about the different parameters those apps support. We'll also talk about the common workflows, so how a typical user is using these links to complete some of their workflows. What we'll do is we'll go through each app and I'll show a slide of parameters, and then I'll show a slide of links. And I'm going to go through these pretty quick. I'd rather spend more time on the tail end actually working through some demos. So first we have Navigator, and you see on the top of the screen there that it supports the web style scheme as well as the custom scheme. There's a number of different parameters here, and you'll see at the bottom of the screen I have a link to where the documentation is for these parameters. On the last slide of this presentation, I'll also have a link for all the different apps on there as well, so you don't have to worry about getting the link right now. So for new items that we didn't talk about last year, we added the support for the item ID, which is to open, a specific map in Navigator. And we also added the route item ID parameter, which allows you to load a route layer in Navigator. For common workflows, since we added this item ID parameter, a real common workflow is, to just simply open up the Navigator app and load a specific map. You can also enhance that a little bit by, if you're creating pre-planned routes in the back office, you can also provide a link to your drivers that includes that route layer. So Navigator will open the app and the route layer. You can also do things like calculate the route client side of Navigator. So you can provide this stop address and Navigator will geocode that location and generate a route. You can also pass in a number. So Navigator will create a route to stops that you pass in. And if you provide that optimize equals true parameter, it will actually find the best sequence. You can also provide a callback and a callback prompt. And what this will essentially do is upon the route completion, it will actually open up the URL provided for the callback. And this is a way to, call Navigator from your application. And then when the route completes, it will actually send the user back to your application so they don't get kind of stuck in Navigator and have to figure out how to traverse the apps themselves. Next, we have Explore. You'll see that this application also supports both the web scheme and the custom scheme. There hasn't been too many additions in the most recent update of Explore. We added the support for the portal URL, which allows you to quickly connect your mobile worker to a specific enterprise. So some of the common workflows, just like Navigator, a lot of folks are just using the URL scheme to get their field worker to a specific map. You can also provide in that portal URL if you want to make sure they're connecting to the right enterprise organization or ArcGIS Online organization. You can provide in the center and scale if you want to provide a specific viewpoint for your field worker upon opening the app. You can even search for things. So if you want to allow your field worker to open the app and be viewing the details of a feature, you can search for that feature and it will actually bring that feature up and select it on the map for them. Now, Collector has added a lot of enhancements for the URL scheme for this latest release. So a lot of this is different than what you may be aware of for Classic Collector. So I definitely would recommend checking out the doc they have and seeing what the different things you can do are, because they added a lot of things like the portal URL. different reference contexts if you're adding features or opening maps. They also added, some of the stuff here like the use of an antenna height or a location profile. And they also added the callback as well. So you can, call back to your calling application once the add feature process is complete. So for example, workflows, you can use this portal URL to connect to that enterprise and then provide a reference context to open a specific map. You'll notice it's a little bit different than Explore. The URL scheme has kind of grown in Collector quite a bit, so the reference context was required to kind of keep things behaving cleanly in the app. You can also provide the reference context of center and provide a latitude longitude of the place you'd like to set the viewpoint. You can also search for things just like in Explorer. And you can also add features. So you provide that add feature reference context and the feature source URL for the layer that you'd like to add a feature on. Lastly, I just wanted to call out this one where you can actually go ahead and seed some feature attributes. You'll notice that the value for that is actually URL encoded, and I decoded it down at the bottom so you can see what that looks like. And also providing a callback and a callback prompt. So once the add feature process is complete, it'll actually take you back to the Explorer application. Survey 123, they don't quite have support for that web scheme yet, but they do still have that custom scheme available. And they have these different parameters supported here, such as the item ID, the field that you'd like to attributes with, and a location if you'd like to provide a location for the survey. The web linking parameters are a little bit different. You'll see they have this mode kind of like the reference and collector. You have to provide the global ID of the survey, and you can provide things like hi. Common workflows for the mobile app are things like, launch a user to a specific survey, seed some attributes for that survey, and also provide the location as well as seeding attributes for the survey. Quick Capture, one of our newer apps, they will support the web scheme with their upcoming release as well as the custom scheme. They will support things like that portal URL, providing the item ID of the Quick Capture project, and then also the user input that you'd like to seed for those attributes. Workforce for ArcGIS. The mobile client right now does not support a lot of different parameters, but what you can do is on the project configuration side, you can actually go in and add these integrations. You'll notice on the left-hand side, see the default integrations that you can configure through the UI. Notice on the right-hand side, we have highlighted, this action in those integrations, complete integrator app, and this is actually a custom integration I will and added into my project. Now you can't do that through the Workforce project configuration UI, but what you can do is you can open up a tool like AGO Assistant, and you can go ahead and search for your project by ID, and then if you view the project JSON, you can actually edit it, and then any number of custom configuration or custom integrations you'd like the one you see here. And this is just here to kind of note that, what I've showed today isn't really all inclusive. If there's another app that you don't see on here, may as well be possible that you can do what you'd like. And if not, I'd definitely encourage you to reach out via GeoNet and provide some recommendations for things you'd like to see. So with that, let's jump over to the demo. What I'll do is I'll basically show you how you can use some of those links that we just discussed to launch the mobile apps. Okay, so if I switch over to my phone, I have this QR code scanning app that I'm going to use. It allows me to kind of demo these URL schemes a little bit better. Basically, what we'll do is we'll look at a few different examples of URLs I have embedded in QR codes, talk about the different parameters I'm using, and then we'll be able to open that URL and see what the resulting behavior is in our mobile application. So the first one we'd like to take a look at is this Explorer URL. You'll see that I'm using that web scheme there, and I'm providing things like that portal URL, the item ID, and a center location, which is actually centering on a feature at a given scale. So if I go ahead and open this, you'll see I am connected to my portal. I can sign in. The map is opened. It centers on the feature at the scale I gave it. So a pretty quick way to get your user to a specific viewpoint. If I zoom out a little bit, I can actually go ahead and scan this pretty similar URL. You'll notice instead of the center parameter, I'm actually saying I want to search for that feature. And now if I open this, you'll see it executes the search, finds the feature, and then selects it on the map. So it's a quick way to get your field worker to a specific feature that they may need to view some attributes about. Next, let's look at Navigator. So here I have this web scheme for Navigator. You'll see I'm providing this item ID for this map, as well as a number of different stops. So what Navigator is going to do is it'll actually generate a route to all of these stops in the order they're provided in the link. So I can go ahead and open that, and you'll see that route is calculated like such. If you want to let Navigator optimize that route for you, you can provide the same URL, and then at the very end, you can actually say optimize equals true. And you'll notice that previous route that I had, it actually creates a new route, and it's slightly optimized, so it's a little bit different. The new version of Navigator supports route layers. So this is a way to create these pre-planned routes in the back office that can include things like waypoints and barriers. You can provide to your field workers with the route layer item ID, and when it's opened in Navigator, you'll see that route layer is loaded, and it actually contains that barrier that I included in the map, or in the route layer, I'm sorry. Next, looking at Collector. Here I have a web scheme for Collector. I'm providing things like the portal URL. I'm providing that reference context of search, as well as the search value of the same feature we looked at earlier. See, I'm prompted to sign in, and then Collector opens the map, searches for that feature, and selects it, and it shows the pop-up for it. Next, if you want to expedite the feature collection workflow for your field workers, you can provide a link that provides the reference context of add feature, as well as the feature source URL. And if I open that, it will actually start this collection process where I can begin to, add a new feature. Let's cancel that for now. We can also provide in some attributes as well if we want to start seeding the attributes for that feature. So you'll see here I have this feature attributes JSON representation. I'm also providing a callback and a callback prompt. So what will happen is after I finish collecting a feature and submit it, it will prompt me to return URLer, which is my custom app here. One thing to note is remember that these feature attributes have to be URL encoded. I decoded them down below here just so they're easier to read. So if I open that, you'll see we get the same view and collector where we're starting this collection process. I'm going to go ahead and start adding some points. You'll notice if I open up this table, those values that I provided in the feature attributes have been set here. Now I can go ahead and submit this. And once that's submitted, I get prompted that the collection is complete. And would I like to return to URLer? Of course I do. So I'll say yes here. And then my app recognizes that I was opened via a URL and displays this dialog. Next, survey 123. You'll see I have this simple link that just opens survey 123 to a specific survey. Let's close that. And then you can also, much like collector, seed some of these attributes. So providing the fields for type of construction, primary occupancy, and the overall hazards, as well as the center. I can actually go ahead and open that. You'll see the location is set on the map, and these have already been pre-selected. So with that, let's switch back to our slides. So that, just quick, that was just a little demo on how you can use some of these links to actually launch the mobile application. So next I will pass it over to James, and he'll talk a little bit about how you can actually incorporate this into some of your workflows. Thank you.
Now that we've seen how links can open apps, let's take a look at how we can use them in our field operations. Links can be provided to users in a variety of ways. A daily email that provides instructions with links to open the correct form, for instance, or a text message with the link that a user can click on to open the map. You can use a link as the basis for a QR code, enabling someone to open a survey by simply scanning the code with their phone. A very common way for ArcGIS users to create links is via a pop-up configuration in a web map. Using pop-ups, the web map author can copy an existing feature's data into the app. This is helpful to center the map or pre-populate the data collected. For example, placing the asset ID information into a form. To help with this, Arcade, the scripting language of pop-ups, has a URL encode function that makes it easy to configure which values are contained in a link. Let's take a look at how we can configure a link inside a web map. Here, you see a web map that contains parking meters for San Diego. If I click on a parking meter, you can see I've got several links that open up either the field app or the web app of Survey 123, as well as this button-looking link, which is simply the link to the field app combined with some additional HTML. Going into the pop-up configuration, you can see that I have a custom attribute display, which allows me to have the most flexibility in formatting the pop-up. If I go into the HTML view, you can see that it's using an arcade expression for both the field app and web app links. Going to the field app, I can see that we're constructing the URL using the ArcGIS Survey123 to open the app, and then I have a set of parameters, many of which are populated from the feature itself. These are combined together using the URL encode function, and then returned with the full link together. I can test this. And see an example link. Again, it begins with that ArcGIS-Survey123, and then has the field parameters that we've talked about. The one difference you see here is that instead of the colon or later on the space, those characters have been percent encoded. %3a when it comes to a colon, and %20 when it is a space. You may have seen this before if you've dealt with extremely complex URLs. So we can see that the values are passed for this particular feature. Switching over to my phone, which has that same map open in Explorer, I can go in and click the button to open up Survey123. It's identified the correct form, the parking meter inspection form, and I can now provide my report. Once that's back, I can come back to my map and actually view the related records. So I can now see my form results.
So there are a lot of our users who are using these links by sharing them directly with their field workers in the form of the email, or even them embedding them in their maps or web applications. But another way that you can use these links is by actually embedding them into your custom applications. And we have seen example of this already today as we were doing our demos with scanning the QR codes. The custom application that I've built here actually is what it's doing is scanning that QR code and embedding the value of that URL and putting it behind that open ArcGIS link button. And this is the same way that you could use it in your own custom app if you wanted to have a button that opened up Navigator to generate a route, or open up Survey123 to launch some data collection for your field workers. And you may be wondering, if I'm a developer and I have my own custom app, what does it take to actually add this integration point into my own app? And this would be useful if you want to try and make that seamless integration between our apps, by utilizing that callback prompt parameters, so that when your field workers get done doing their data collection in Collector or navigating their route in Navigator, those applications send the user back to your own custom app. And just quickly, I'm going to go over a few different slides just discussing, what it takes to add this integration point into your own custom app. So for the custom scheme on iOS, it's pretty straightforward. You basically just have to add that URL into the target settings and then implement the appropriate delegate methods to parse that link when the app is opened. Now, the web style scheme is a little bit more complicated of a process. Really, you just need to have some sort of hosting site that you can use as a back end, where you can host this Apple App Site Association file that is accessible, so that you can establish that trust connection between the hosting site and your mobile app. And this is in place for all the different platforms, essentially, so that you can't just say, I want google.com to open my app. There has to be some sort of trust that you own the website that you'll be using to launch the app with. And then for these web style schemes, you need to add the associated domain capability for that domain that you'd like to use, and then again implement those delegate methods to parse that link when the app is opened. For Android, the process is going to look pretty similar, right? So for the custom scheme, we need to add some intent filters for the paths that you want to handle in the app. And then you add the code for your logic to handle those intents once the app is opened. And then same as with iOS, when implementing these web style schemes, you need to have some hosting site as a backend where you can host this JSON file to establish that trust connection between the Android app and the website. And then same as with the custom scheme, you need to declare that domain in the intent filters and then add that logic to parse that URL. For Windows, and in here we're talking just Windows 10 UWP, it's going to be a little bit different implementation depending on the specific platform. But this is more just to give you a general idea. Basically for the custom scheme, you need to add that extensibility point for the URI that you'd like to handle, and then just parse the link when on activated. And then for the web style scheme, same as all the other platforms, you need to have that hosting site back end where you can host that JSON file to establish that trust. And then you can do the same steps you did with the custom scheme as well here. So we talked about the website component a few times there. And really all that is going to be some sort of simple website, and maybe you already have a website you use for whatever your organization is doing that you can kind of repurpose for this. But for our mobile apps here, this is an example of the one we have for Navigator, where basically all it is a landing page for that application, and then we host those files at that location so that our apps can establish that trust between that domain and our app. And the landing page is great because really the user will only run into this if they don't have the application installed. And then you see they have the buttons to install the app, at which point they could then launch the link again to open up the Navigator app. Previously with the custom schemes, if the application isn't installed, the link doesn't really do anything for the field worker. So it'd almost be like tapping on the link does nothing. Whereas now at least, they get kind of that cue that, hey, I need to download this app before I can open up this route. So with that, let's go into the demo. What I'm going to show you is a quick little example of how you can actually build this stuff into your own app. We'll basically mimic some sort of work order application that allows me to link out to any of the mobile applications. So if I switch over to my iPhone here, you see I can launch this application I have called Integrator, creative name. And you'll see I have this list of work orders. And I can go ahead and I can tap on any one of those. And you'll see I have all of these action buttons on the bottom of the screen that allow me to link out to the apps like Navigator, Explorer, Collector, and even Tracker. In this example, I want to provide a mechanism for my field workers to be able to traverse our private road network that we have. So we use Navigator that provides this offline navigation using some data. So my field workers can simply tap on the Navigator button. It opens up Navigator and generates a route to their assignment. Now I can go ahead and I can actually start navigating using Navigator. You won't get the turn-by-turn over this video, but what you'll see is pretty cool. I'm using that callback and callback prompt. So once the route completes, I'll actually get this alert that appears and lets me know that, hey, would you like to return to Integrator, which is my custom app? I can go ahead and hit return. You'll actually notice that the URL that I passed to Navigator actually had a URL to my Integrator app, which contained the ID of the assignment that I was navigating to. So it actually some information back in the application So it knows, hey, they got there. You can now mark this as complete, and you see that my UI updates accordingly. So that's just a really quick demo of how you can build your own custom app and incorporate it with one of our applications. Lastly, for anyone that's familiar with the ArcGIS API for Python, there is a apps module within the ArcGIS API that allows you to call some of these helper methods, such as build Navigator URL, build Explorer URL, and they'll actually allow you to pass in, any number of parameters, and it will return you a string of the link that you can then incorporate into, some other scripting job that you're doing. So just wanted to point that out. So that's trying to script the link creation, that that's available to you. And that is it, and concludes our presentation. Here's the links to the help docs for the app linking and a couple case studies for folks that are actually out there using some of these links. Definitely would encourage you to reach out via GeoNet if you have any enhancement requests or any other ideas or questions.